Welcome back to Record Live. We are in a different space. You will notice Zanita is in the office this week for the end of year stuff, the Christmas celebrations and the Christmas parties, which is exciting. We always love having Zanita in the office. It's great to engage with, collaborate, have meetings where we can chat about how the ministries are going and whatnot. So it's great to have you in person, in flesh, Sanita.
It's good to be here and not recording in my kitchen.
In your
or
kitchen or in here on the
Not my
balcony. Yeah, moving around.
balcony,
Yeah.
bedroom.
And, we thought we'd try this space as well. We have done a few interviews in here, but not too many. And we thought it'd be fun to mix it up as we approach the end of this year. So, Zanita, how are things?
Things are good. The year is wrapping up. Everyone's feeling quite stressed and like, what a year it's been. But I'm feeling quite relaxed. I'm like, I've enjoyed this year. I think
lucky you.
I think it's been good. I feel on top of things. Feel also ready for another break. Yeah. How are you feeling?
I'm very ready to break for the year. I'm looking forward to that, spending some downtime with the family. It's been quite busy. It's been quite full on, but it's been a good year, I think. But we'll talk about reflecting on the year a little bit because that's actually today's topic of conversation. My wife's culture, Zanita, is something that I've learnt more about as we've been together. And over the years, like there's many things that you appreciate, some things that are challenging. But one of the things that has stood out to me is this practice that they have of gathering at church on New Year's Eve.
That's cool.
Which is not something that I'd sort of experienced growing up. So often we would gather at church, if not at church, as a family group at home. If there aren't other events on, obviously on New Year's Eve, people would gather together, and it was like a Thanksgiving session. It was like, sometimes it turned into a bit of a testimony night as well, but reflecting on the year and, okay, as we go into next year, what are we thankful for? That was the basic question that everyone was asked, and people had the opportunity to share and to talk about that. And, as we talk today about thankfulness and gratitude, I think it's important to take time at the end of the year to reflect and to be grateful about things. So I guess that leads us into today's topic.
I think that's really cool that their culture does that, because I think one thing that I really love about America is their holiday of Thanksgiving. I think it's such a cool holiday and such like a wholesome holiday. Like it's not encouraging you to go and buy gifts for everyone. It's not like, I guess, going with that consumerism mindset. It's not like Halloween where you've got freaky things everywhere. Like it's like you're literally just gathering with people and giving thanks, which I think is such an awesome thing. And I know in Australia, a lot of people have just started doing it anyway because it's like, this is awesome. But I also feel like December, when December comes every year, I just go into like reflective mode because I guess I'm like a very nostalgic person. But a few years ago, I accidentally kind of started this ritual where I was like, throughout the year, I was writing down like everything good that happened or everything fun that happened or every like new person I met that was like a real blessing to me. I would literally have this note in my phone and it was just like titled, I don't know, good things in 2022. And I would just write everything down.
Okay.
And it was like a year that I was really struggling with a lot of things, but I got to the end of the year, like that December, and I was like, wow, so many awesome things have happened this year. But if I hadn't have done that, I would have just gone to the end of the year and been like, that was the worst year of my life. And so I think there's a lot of power in just like reflecting on the positive things that happen in our life, on the good things, on the growth moments, on the people that we've met that year, because we just forget so much. Like we just like, how often do you get to the end of like a week and you're like, I don't even know what's happened at the end of the year. And you're like, I don't remember anything. like we are really forgetful. And so I think that it's like really important for us to note things and to think on things.
So you put it all in the same note?
Yeah. So now every...
And then at the end of the year, you read back through it as a part of that practice.
And so accidentally I did that. But now every like January 1, I literally start a new note. And so it'll be like 2025 highlights.
Interesting.
And then like at the end of the year, I'm like, this is awesome. Like every year just seems like exciting fun. Like there's always things to be thankful for. Like there's always good things happening. And so
normally, Zanita, we finish with something practical, but that's a very practical thing that maybe someone who's watching can take with them and start for the new year, because that sounds awesome to me. Just that that idea, that practice.
It's a really cool thing as well to like because I'm mindful of that.
Yes.
To then like, you know, at the end of the year, we're often getting together with people, meeting family, friends, whatever. And I think it's a cool thing to kind of be like, oh, like to have those positive questions in mind, to be like, what's your favorite part of the year been? How have you gone? Who have you met? Like just to kind of create some good conversation at the end of the year.
Yeah. A lot of us, Zanita, on January 1, like you mentioned that on January 1, you read back through the list, and it's like a lot of us actually make resolutions.
Yeah.
And I've written my editorial for the December, what date was it? December 21, which is just before Christmas. It was my last editorial of the year. And I was reflecting on this idea of gratitude, you know, and thankfulness, and reflecting at the end of the year. And I guess a lot of us, you know, it came to my attention when I was writing this. A lot of us reflect on our lives in a negative way at the end of the year. Like we set resolutions because the idea is a good one, sort of to improve ourselves, but it comes from a place of not happy usually. Like it might be a positive resolution. I'm not thinking of any off the top of my head right now, but like for myself, it's often I want to lose weight. I need to exercise more. Maybe it's a spiritual thing. I need to read my Bible more. I need to pray more. I need to add more, and it's adding more into our lives. It's putting burdens sometimes on ourselves. Now, some of those things might be important to address at any point in our life. They might make our lives better, actually, but I find we often come into the end of the year, starting a new year, and we put these like guilt trips on ourselves, and we're like very, whereas I guess reflecting is a different practice where it's like, okay, I'm thankful for everything that's happened. And even in the challenges, I can be thankful for, you know, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, or someone was kind to me during that time when it was really hard, or God saw me through, like I felt God's presence in that dark and difficult time. And so when you think about that, I guess it really reframes your perspective, as opposed to how can I be a better person, but how can I be grateful for what I've just sort of experienced or been through.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people, they start the year with like these goals in mind, and we know the statistics that it only takes a few months and then we've kind of caved, or we haven't succeeded or something. And so we don't forget those goals because we still want to achieve them. But then it gets to the end of the year, like, I don't know, November, December, we start thinking, oh, next year I'll start again. And next year it will be different. And I don't think that's bad, but I think sometimes people do like we're talking about like thankfulness and gratitude and stuff. Sometimes people can think that like that's opposing, like it won't help us with our goals, like just sitting in that space. And maybe it's not enough. Like maybe we need to do more than just be grateful and thankful. But like there has been studies that show when you are more grateful and when you're more thankful, you're also more like motivated. You're also happier. You also like have more of that, like, I guess, energy to like pursue more difficult things, like because you're not like down about yourself, or you're not like doubting yourself, or you're not beating yourself up. So it's like you've got this like confidence in this like energy to do better and to achieve things. So it's like, I guess it's like a good backbone, is that like thankfulness and gratitude to then be like, I don't know, it sets you up. It helps you to be more successful in achieving your goals. And yeah, I guess it just gives you a bit more like faith in yourself, or like confidence in yourself. I could be wrong, but that's my theory, I guess. But
I think as a person of faith, also God comes into that picture. So like you recognize where God's led you, how he's helped you through the year, which often maybe you don't when you're not taking that time to reflect. We've talked about leadership this year already, and I've been doing like a leadership course this year, and one of the things that you first learn is like you have to lead yourself.
Yeah.
And they were really emphasizing, which I sort of didn't get at the start, but now I'm starting to really pick up reflection, how important it is to reflect. And often I think some of us avoid silence.
Yeah.
We avoid slowing down. We avoid reflection because we ruminate. We get stuck on an idea and the negative cycles through our head, and we're like, oh, we could have done better and better. But intentional reflection, like reflecting with a question in mind and then like really like looking for positives, that can actually break that cycle. Like it's not getting stuck in that. But I get the fear of like thinking back, like and dwelling on your mistakes. I get that it's uncomfortable for some people and they're trying to avoid that. But I think actually it can be unhealthy to try and avoid that all the time, because if you're never reflecting, you don't have as intentional a life. You're not actually leading yourself. You're just reacting. You're passive. You're being pulled about by, as Hamlet would say, the corrupted currents of this world, rather than actually forging a path, swimming against the current, all of these metaphors that
what would you say to someone who was like had a really difficult year, who is like kind of listening to this and being like, I really don't have anything to be grateful for, or like the idea of thinking about what I'm grateful for just kind of like, I don't know, sits uneasy because it's been a hard year. Like, how do you, I know that's really hard for people who like maybe have had a really big loss or have just had setback after setback, like to kind of get in that mindset, because it just seems overwhelming. Do you have any suggestions?
First, maybe I would just want to know more about what had happened. Giving them that opportunity to talk about it gives them an opportunity to feel a bit, for myself, getting those things out, and it is a form of reflection. I will often find that things that are really bothering me, for me, it's writing them down.
Yeah.
If I journal, write, I feel it's a form of catharsis. It gets it out of my system. And often I'll find myself finding things of thankfulness, moments of thankfulness in that. Like, if I'm still alive, that's something to be thankful for. And that's not to diminish, people have lost people. You might have a terminal illness. And so you're like, yeah, but I'm alive, but, my health is rubbish. Or, so yeah, these are really hard things that we wrestle with. But in my experience, the deepest, darkest times of my life, things get better.
Yeah.
And then I'm back there sometimes. And then it gets a bit better again. And so, actually recognizing, though, how God, and this is a theme I always come back to, people are like, stop repeating yourself, Jared, but like actually seeing how God brought me out of the darkness last time helps me to see when I'm in the middle of it the next time, will actually, and this is a form of what we're talking about, reflecting gratefulness, thankfulness for what God has done for me in the past. When I'm in the middle and it seems like my prayers aren't being answered, I've got no support, etc., I actually know that, I'm feeling like that now, but I've been in this situation before and God has actually pulled me out of it.
Yeah. Even if, I guess, like sometimes looking back to look forward, or even if you are like a younger person and haven't had those experiences before where you've seen God come through. I know sometimes like for example, if you were sitting around the table and everyone was sharing what they were grateful for, that might lead you to be like frustrated or like disappointed because everyone else had these awesome years and you haven't. But I think sometimes looking at other people's stories can give you hope. Like, I guess it's just reframing how you're looking at it. Like, it's not like, oh, I've had such a terrible year and everyone else has an awesome year, but it's like, oh, they haven't always had an awesome year. Like, they have had really bad years in the past, and like they've gone through that, and you can also get through that. Like,
yeah, and I believe, Sanita, in using those as opportunities to model that. Like, I think being intentionally recognizing, like, okay, if this is an open forum gratitude session, if this is a praise session, we've gathered as a church for New Year's, and we're being open, like with our thankfulness, our gratitude. I might actually use that opportunity to talk about something that's been really difficult, but where God has seen me through, and that I'm thankful to God for that. Because that gives other people in the room permission to, even if they don't feel comfortable sharing what they're in right now, they get a little bit of hope for that. I think. I think, we can become caught in, when we had our daughter, we had written and talked about our infertility journey, and we wrote about the miracle that God had sort of given us. That I wrestled with writing that editorial because I knew that people who hadn't had that experience would be upset. But at the same time, we'd solicited prayer, we'd put the story out there, the negative side of that, and it's like, if we can't praise God for the good things he does, even though life is broken sometimes, then that really puts us in a sticky situation in terms of trying to, express anything. And then we can end up repressing everything and not talking about it and not reflecting on it and shutting it down. And that also is a very uncomfortable place to be in for our faith, I think. So I'm a believer in, and sometimes it's as simple as you frame the session, the Thanksgiving, I would like to thank God for, and you leave it very open-ended, and then people can bring their difficult week, their positive, but I'm still thankful to God for such and such. If we live in Australia, and not all of our viewers may, but even just looking at the statistics, it's an interesting exercise to be like, I have running water, I have a working toilet, I have food on the table. If I, so I'm 90% better off than most people in the history of the world and currently ever. So there's a lot of things we can look for. I guess it's what you look for. If you look for negative things, you can find them. But if you train yourself to look for positive things, you can also find those without being that smiley Cheshire cat, like all the time, like everything's perfect. Like that's the opposite. We put the mask on, and that's a dangerous problem to have as well.
Anyone who's been to a third world country will know that when they come home, it's very easy to be thankful for the toilet paper and the flushing toilets, and the fact that you don't have to pay for a toilet, or like just these little things that we forget. But it is true. I think this is an awesome, mindset to go, or to finish the year with as well, because many people are getting together with family, and a lot of people have family conflicts, and a lot of people, this is like an anxiety-inducing time because they're not gathering in peace, I suppose. That's just some people's reality on Christmas. And so I think like having this gratitude mindset is a cool thing to kind of go into those situations with, to like, if you notice the conversation going in a certain way, or if people are like in these toxic cycles of talking about certain things, it's kind of helpful to have certain questions to be able to like ask people, because do you know what I mean?
What kind of questions?
Well, you mentioned some in your editorial. It's like just having these questions that are centered on gratitude, and that's just not specifically like the simple answer of like, what are you grateful for this year? But like questions like, how has God shown up in your life this year? Or what have you learned this year that you haven't learned before that has really excited you? Or have you met anyone new this year that you've really enjoyed getting to know? Like, I guess questions that just have like that positive, reflective tone, and that I guess are like more specifically worded so that they don't end up going
like
in the other direction,
break the cycle of negativity.
Instead of just asking the question, what's going on or what's new, like specifically asking a positively worded question will like steer the conversation, hopefully, not necessarily, but like you've got a higher chance of it heading in a positive direction than a negative. And I think that can just be like helpful, like to, if you are someone who has a lot of conflict in your family, or like conversations go a certain way, it can just be helpful to kind of like keep that in mind if you need.
Definitely. And we hope that you don't have conflict this Christmas, but it definitely does happen. In my editorial, I pointed out this study, and I found it really interesting. I thought we'd share it with you guys today. University of Indiana researchers, they got together a group of 300 students. Now, these were students who were already seeking mental health support. So, or they'd reached out, they wanted to start the process to get counseling or some kind of support. And so they divided them into 3 groups. So 300 students, I'm assuming there's 100 students in each group. One group didn't write anything. One group wrote about their deep thoughts and feelings about negative experience. So it's kind of that cathartic journaling, getting it out of your system idea. And then one group was asked to write a letter of gratitude each week for 3 weeks. Now, it was interesting that they didn't even get that group to send the letter. Not all of them sent the letter. In fact, a small amount of the participants actually sent the letter to the person. They were asked to picture a person, perhaps a family member or a friend, and they were going to send them that letter, but not all of them did. But all of that group who had the letters of gratitude experienced significantly better mental health than the other 2 groups.
Huh. So interesting.
And only 23% sent the letters. So what's that? The rest didn't send the letters. 77% didn't send the letters, but still experienced the benefits. So it's not about the actual action of like having that interaction with someone. It's just the interaction of reflecting on gratitude while you're, and these are people that are suffering some kind of mental ill health, like they're seeking better mental health, and they've experienced this improvement there. I found that really interesting, that study.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense because you're still going through that process of reflecting on it, even though you're not sharing it. Because how often do you kind of like deeply dwell on your gratitude for just one person? It's not very often, but I think even that's a cool, like, obviously do the exercise and don't feel pressured to send it, but it is a cool, like, Christmas. Like if someone wrote me a letter and spoke it to me on Christmas, that would be like the ultimate gift to me, because I'm, I guess, a words of affirmation person.
Wow.
But
yeah.
I think it's a cool thing to kind of give someone around that Christmas period, is that like thankfulness for them and what they've done. But yeah.
Gentlemen, if you haven't got gifts for your loved ones this Christmas, write them a letter. Write it on some nice paper, wrap it, and pretend you've put lots of thought into it, because you've already missed the shopping window for this year. It might be a good last minute gift idea. On this idea of writing and reflecting, and I don't know if I've shared this on Record Live before, but I've started this sort of thing called morning pages
awesome.
this year.
Yeah.
It's the artist's way. I think it's Julia Cameron sort of popularized it. But it's this concept of basically grabbing 15 minutes in the morning or at any point. But I think the morning's good to start the day with. And it's not always reflection for me. It's not always been a reflective exercise, but often it does. If you're trying to think, what do I write this morning? And the idea is just to write for 15 minutes, just get what you can out. It's not necessarily to be structured or to be thinking, hey, someone else is going to read this. It's just to get the creative juices flowing, but also just to, I've found it a very helpful, reflective, and often prayer exercise. Like often it turns into a prayer. I'm imagining my audience as God. He knows my thoughts. He's close. He wants to know my, the inner workings of my being. So when I'm doing my morning pages, and a lot of people recommend the sort of handwritten, my handwriting's terrible. I hate so I'm doing it on my laptop, but
nice.
You gotta vary it for what works for you.
Yeah, totally.
But a couple of those times I've gone, and probably not as much as I could or should, but I've gone, hey, I need to be, what am I thankful for? And just putting out lists and just all the things I'm thankful for in 15 odd minutes, trying to write them all down. And I've just found it a really helpful, just in general, the morning pages idea of reflecting on the year and reflecting on my week and reflecting on the day before. And it's given me a couple of, I would call almost breakthroughs of reframing situations in my life that I've been struggling with, that have given me really positive actions have come out of that because I've been able to spend that time actually wrestling with some of these things. So I would recommend it as an option. I know not everyone's wired the same. For me, as a words person, spending time with words in the morning for 15 minutes and just tapping out my thoughts and really working through that has been really helpful. Yeah, really helpful. So I don't know if it would work for some of our audience, but it's something I would definitely recommend. And it's
something you can try while you've got extra time off.
Try during the holidays. Journaling is a very similar concept. Doing your devotion or your prayer journal in the morning. It's the same. It's similar. I've done those things in the past, but this time I've tried to make it much more consistent, trying to do it as often as I can. I even had a reminder in my calendar for a while, just to say, hey, make sure you remember. Even if I didn't do it that day, I had that reminder pop up and I was like, I really should be doing this when I do have the opportunity. So
yeah, and for those of you who don't like writing or are shorter on time, even through the holidays, I know something my brother does is he'll be walking home from work, or he'll be walking to the train station, and he'll record a note in his phone, what good things have happened that day, or like
audio.
He'll just audio record it. But something that I sometimes just do is if I'm walking somewhere or if I'm cleaning the house or doing something, I'll just audibly start talking and almost praying, I guess, about the things, because sometimes it can just help. If you just think it in your head, I find it really easy to just get distracted and start thinking about something else. But if you're physically speaking something out, it can help you stay more on track and just feels more conversational. So that could be another idea. But I guess landing the conversation, Jared, I would be interested to know, obviously you've been doing morning pages and you've already kind of been in reflective stage. Is there anything that God has taught you this year, or anything that you're particularly grateful for 2024?
That's a great question. I wasn't thinking about it beforehand, so you've just sprung it on me. Now I've got to think about it. I'm very grateful that although it's been a very crazy year, I feel pretty drained right now this week, to be honest. I'm pretty much at the end of my strength. But I feel thankful for the year itself, because although it's been busy, although it's been draining, there's been a lot of stuff happening. I feel better equipped going into next year. I feel more optimistic and more hopeful going into next year than I did going into this year. Last year was really rough, existential crises, burnout, I was feeling right on the edge of burnout last year. And I've managed to do some of these things, like the reflection and some of the training and equipping that I've had this year has really helped to make me feel, and God has been a big part of that. I see that, I've picked up practical life tools, but God has also helped me in some of those reframing moments. Like I was saying, the morning pages, a couple of those breakthroughs I've had, I believe, are God's guidance, God's leading, because I've been working out a problem in my way, trying to write down and reflect on, I don't know how to solve this. And then God's just flipped it around for me. He's especially with God likes to remind me of this. You need to start with yourself. You can't change others people. You can't always change situations and scenarios. Change your own mindset, and that will help you get to the point where you're much more comfortable with things. And God's doing that work in me this year, and I'm grateful for that. So I'm looking at next year with optimism, with excitement. Next year is going to be a good year, because this year I've been threshed, I've been, refined. God's been, doing things, and I'm grateful for that, because if I looked at where I started this year, I was in a much less optimistic, less hopeful place. Of course, my family, seeing the kids grow and develop little personalities and like learn about God, sing songs and whatever. It's so much fun. I'm grateful for my family, but I'm grateful for the work God's doing in me as well.
Awesome.
What about you, Zanita? What are you grateful for?
What am I grateful for?
You've got to pick one out of the list. You've got 365 days of, almost amazing things.
Well, I kind of went into this year pretty chill. Like I didn't actually set massive goals. Just kind of went in not really knowing what to expect. I think the last few years I've like struggled with my relationship with God in sense of like haven't had a lot of I've just like struggled to hear him, struggled to connect with him. Probably started the year like quite confused and wasn't expecting much. I think because the last few years I didn't really feel like I got that much. So I guess I was just kind of expecting the same but not as intense. But I feel like God really answered some massive prayers and really gave me a lot of like clarity around things, which has been a real blessing. And it's like kind of one of those moments where you're like, oh, he did come through. Like, because I guess I don't have like a whole life of, I guess I'm still quite young in my journey. So I don't have a whole life of like looking back at those like answered prayers and things. So I'm really grateful for that and just really grateful for like, I feel like this year has been simple, like nothing crazy has happened, but I've just really enjoyed like the day-to-day routines of life. Like I feel like I've just been in a good like routine, have awesome people around me, like, and I've just really enjoyed like simple life. like I have had awesome, I have had a few awesome adventures, but I've really just enjoyed like the small things, like the connections, the friendships. I've enjoyed work. I've enjoyed like just spending time with my family. Enjoyed just like simple activities and camping in nature. So yeah, I feel like not often you just have these like chill periods in life. Like usually there's something massive happening or there's like some conflict or something to like complain about. But I feel like the second half at least of the year has just been cruisy. And I'm really grateful for that because you don't always have those seasons in life. So
awesome. Well, this may be the last Record Live this year. We probably will wrap up after this. But we just want to thank you guys for watching, joining us. Zanita, thank you for sharing this year, some of your journey with us, with the audience, and for asking penetrating questions. And yeah, there's been some really good conversations that we've had. If you're missing us over the break, you can go and listen to old episodes on the podcast or on YouTube, Facebook, where you haven't been able to get those. But until then, have a safe and a happy holiday season. If you're traveling or if you're spending time with family, we encourage you to spend some time reflecting and finding some gratefulness. And God bless you all. We've loved journeying with you this year, and we look forward to seeing you again next year.
Thank you for joining us, everyone.
Thank you. We'll see you next year. God bless.